Hello, hello. Let's get started. Good evening. My name is Corinne Ernie. I'm the Senior Curator of Arts Reach and Special Projects here at the Parrish Art Museum, and it is my distinct pleasure to present a program tonight in collaboration with the LGBT Network. We will be showing an original documentary that has been produced by the network, and I would like to introduce some members of the network who will present the program tonight. But first of all, I would also like to thank our Friday night sponsors here at the Parish, the presenting sponsor, Bank of America, the Corcoran Group, as well as Sandy and Stephen Pullbinder. And I would like to ask you all to turn off your cell phones. Thank you very much. So I will first introduce Robert Vitelli, who will give you a brief welcome. And after that, Adrian Stivala, who is also from the network. So I hope you enjoyed tonight's program, and thank you for coming. Robert?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Corinne and Olivia, and everyone here at the Parrish Art Museum for your partnership. Thank you so much. A big round of applause, please, for the folks here at the Parrish Art Museum. My name is Robert Vitelli. I am the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer for the LGBT Network. It's so great to see so many faces here with us tonight and knowing there are so many other faces also present with us virtually tonight. So hello, everyone who is joining us virtually and for this really amazing hybrid event. And it's really great to see so many faces that we know from our own programs and services. So I see your faces under those masks, and it's really great to see you. So woo, thank you so much. The LGBT Network, we're a 501c3 nonprofit charity organization. We're a home and we are a voice for LGBT people, their families, and support systems throughout Long Island and Queens. Our community centers help LGBT people to be themselves, stay healthy, and to change the world. And since 1993, we're actually celebrating our 29th birthday as an organization this week. Since 1993, we've been advocating and pioneering for safe spaces where LGBT people live, learn, work, play, and pray. I want to thank Kerry, our Chief Program Officer, who led this effort to make sure this happened, Adrian, our Program Coordinator, who really was the tools to getting this forward, and our amazing communications team, one of who's here tonight, Andrea Mandarino, and Benji, who's not here with us. So amazing job to you both for putting this together. Thank you so very, very much. Teamwork makes the dream work, and all of you made something incredible tonight. You know, I said that we're a home and a voice. And tonight, you know, this visibility documentary is one of the ways in which we as an organization are a voice, to be able to showcase and center and amplify the voices of our LGBT older adults and really understanding their history. I don't want to take away from what Adrian's going to say about the documentary, but to say to all of you, thank you for being here, and thank you to the people who are part of this documentary. So at this point, I'd like to ask you to help me welcome and bring up Adrian Stivala, our program coordinator, who's going to talk about this. And a big round of applause to him. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. It's really exciting. Thank you so much to the members of Long Island Sage who came tonight. It means a lot to me. But not just them. Everyone else who I haven't met before tonight, thank you so much for being here. And thank you to the Parrish Art Museum and their partnership for really allowing us to further our mission of bringing awareness and visibility to our LGBT elders. You know, this project started with a simple prompt, then and now. We asked participants to share a photo from their youth and one from the present. Where did your younger self think you'd be now? Was our way to navigate through the journey that brought their past selves to who they are today. Today, they are the giants whose shoulders we stand upon. Every generation of LGBT people since have walked the trail blazed by the folks whose stories you will see tonight. Without them, we wouldn't even have met. As we listen to their stories, we notice these themes: marriage, children, heteronormativity, burden, and hope. In this film, their individual portraits are woven together to form a tapestry, illustrating the unique experiences, challenges, and resiliencies of previous generations of LGBT people. Each individual has their own personal story to tell, but together, the film tells a collective story. the shared experiences of our LGBT elders, from the pain of being different 60 years ago, to the burden of living a closeted life, to having families and no regrets, to finding love of self and falling in love, to community and hope. The original intent of making this documentary was to raise visibility of LGBT elders who are too often overlooked. But a serendipitous additional outcome was that these collective stories can extend hope through community dialogues, such as this event, so that we can continue our work in striving to end homophobia, biphobia, transphobia, heterosexism, and cissexism, particularly at the intersections of aging and ageism. So without further ado, let's roll the tape.
Okay, my name is Phil Hauser. I am a Long Island native, born and raised almost all my life. 64 years old. By 1978, when I graduated, I came out to my folks, which was they were very accepting, but it was a very traumatic time for us. I had been working for my father in a family business, and after just a few weeks after I came out to him, I told him, I cannot work here anymore. I need to be out on my own. So that was a very, very big step. There was where I actually started my coming out to people. I mean, sure, right at start when I started working there, I was a little bit quiet about it, but I pretty soon realized that in the environment I was in, that there were a few other gay people at work, and this would be a comfortable place to kind of begin to talk about it. But I felt very sure in what I was doing. It was a lot of very big steps for me. Had my first trip to Fire Island a few weeks before, I think, but that was the summer I would have done that. And so I was discovering all sorts of new things about life. That picture was taken almost 10 years ago on my wedding day with John. And at that point, when John and I got married, we'd already been together for 22 years. And we wanted to finalize our wedding and take our vows. We'd already had a domestic partnership. And at this point in our lives, we did not have that much close family. We've been living together since 1995, but my parents had already passed. Only John's mother was alive, and she was not well, so she couldn't be with us. But we had our wedding out in Montauk, where we have a summer home. And we had told a couple of our friends, our neighbors, people I've known for at that point for over 30 years. And most of them a few years older than me, but not that many years. And I'd asked two of the neighbors who I've known these years to be witnesses at our wedding. And we went down to East Hampton Town Court, where Judge Rana performed the ceremony. And our friends wanted to know, we asked them if they would join us for a restaurant. They said, no, you have to come home. So we came home and found out that they were throwing us a party. So we had a little block party, which was really kind of neat. And what was particularly special for us was that these were people we had known many years. And although we do have extended family, cousins and brothers and sisters, we didn't want to get involved. We didn't want to complicate that. So this was really wound up being a very nice way of having our Montauk family congratulating us. It was really a very, very special day for us. John would tell you that during the ceremony, when they asked if I would, do I say I do? I started to cry because this is something that I never thought in my wildest dreams when I was a child that I would ever see my marriage day, my wedding day. Because by the time I was 16 or 17, I probably really knew what it was I wanted in life, but I could never say it out loud. I would never say it to anyone. I would never even admit it to myself. I was lucky enough in my life that I had come out with a best friend who came out about a year before. And at that time, I came out to him. He was shocked. And lo and behold, we became lovers for a while. Lasted about a year. But we had this open relationship, which is not uncommon in the 1970s. And eventually went our own separate ways. Okay. But he kind of took me by the hand and said, here, I'll show you where the bars are. I'll show you where you go. I'll show you Fire Island. I'll show you the gay synagogue in New York. I'll show you Christopher Street. But it was really something to be doing these things with someone you could trust. And at a certain point being told, okay, you're on your own. Go discover things. And that was kind of scary, but I did it. And I came out okay. I mean, I certainly know a lot of people who did not come out as well as I did. And I think I was a very, very lucky person because by the time the 1980s came around, I started saying goodbye to quite a few friends. And in 1989, I said goodbye to a very good friend who that really threw me for a loop. Enough that when I came down with shingles, I got really scared out of my wits and wound up at a clinic in North Shore Hospital to be tested because I was gone afraid because I had symptoms. But it wound up being I was having fear. And I was having shingles too. But I think what I saw in 1979 from that first photo, any of us who were alive then would have ever guessed what we were going to be seeing in the next 3, 4, 10 years. And I wouldn't say I came through it unscathed because there was certainly emotional scars that occurred then. But we all learned from it.
Well, my name is Michael Barsham. I was born and raised in actually Queens, New York. Having children, I have a son also who is 37. Having children has definitely been one of the high points of my life. I knew that I was attracted to men from the time that I was a little kid, but I was very, very much influenced by my parents and by society. And I did exactly what I was supposed to do. So I actually went to law school, which I did not want to do. But while I was there, I met the woman who was to become my wife, and we got married. And I stayed in the relationship for well over 30 years, or something like 33, 34 years. And we did what you were supposed to do. We had 2 children. And as I said, my children are definitely my highest priority. After 33, 34 years, my wife just said to me, my ex-wife said to me, Michael, you're not getting what you need out of this marriage. I'm not getting what I need. It's time for you to go. And if she hadn't done that, I would probably still be stuck in that same marriage and unhappy and filled with anxiety and regrets. But this way, I am lucky enough to have a family, and I am lucky enough now at this stage of my life to be actively engaged in the gay life. And you could say I have the best of both. If I had been out at the time when most people of that era were out, I would have been very much involved in the AIDS crisis, which I also fortunately missed. So I am lucky enough that I missed the AIDS crisis, that I have children, but here I am at 58, I am 71 now. I came out when I was 58. And while I never use the word regret, I certainly feel that I missed out on the life that I might have had being out when I was in my 20s and 30s and 40s. Putting aside the AIDS crisis, I mean, I hear these stories about what went on, and I just was never a part of that. And but I do, I have so much to show for it in exchange that, again, the word regret is never in my vocabulary, but I can't say I don't feel like I missed out on certain things. I certainly question my choices. Now I am an out gay man, and I have no secrets. I have, I have that angst of not ever being comfortable in my own skin is gone. I'm completely comfortable with my life. When I came out at 58, I said, I spent 58 years in the closet. I am not spending one more day there. And I certainly didn't put on a sign, but if it ever came up, I make no excuses for being gay. I make I am very proud of being gay. My children certainly supported my decision. It wasn't a decision. They support my lifestyle. I sometimes wish that they understood more the concept of gay pride. They accept that their father is gay, and I have close relationships with both of them. But on the other hand, I feel very constrained about what I talk about. I limit what I talk about. They understand that I am gay, that I have a social life, that I live in a gay mecca in Florida. And they accept all that, but they somehow don't want to hear anything about it. I have the pleasure. Usually children come out to their parents. Well, in my family, it was the exact opposite. I came out to my children. Here I was a gay man, and I was living a secret life. And I don't know how closely they were related, but I just had this total feeling of, I had a very poor self-image. I can say probably the most uplifting thing I ever did in my whole life was coming out. And I changed careers. I moved, I got divorced. Made all sorts of changes in my life. By far, the most uplifting and liberating thing I ever did was coming out. And I found that after I did come out, I would call up friends and family and say that I was getting divorced, and they would ask me why. After 30 years of marriage, are you getting divorced? And I told them, and I had absolutely unanimous support. I was expecting people to say, well, how could you do this? How could you have deceived your wife? And actually, there was no deception. May have been denial, but there was no deception. But that's not what I got. Everybody said, you know what, Michael, you're a good guy. You raised a family. You went to work every day. You did the right thing. Good for you. It is time for you to live your life. But most of them said, like my children, this is not a surprise. So I realized that I had spent 58 years of my life living a lie, fooling nobody but me. And again, at this point, maybe be having some questions, but more than anything, enjoying the life that I have been privileged to have now.
So my name is Eve Weinberg. And at this time, I live in East Meadow, but I grew up in Brooklyn, moved to Long Island for high school, went out of the area for college and grad school, and then have been back on Long Island since about 1990. That's a zoomed in part of a picture of me when I went to day camp in Brooklyn. In fact, it was called Brooklyn Day Camp. And I was fortunate enough to go. It was 6 days a week. And then Sundays, the camp was open for families to come in for, I don't know, maybe $5 and use their pool and playground and so on, and property. So that's when that picture is. I would say just around puberty, because I was about, I would say in that picture around 11. Looking back, to be honest, probably that I was happy and excited to be sitting next to my camp counselor for that photo, which you can't see in the photo. But I even think then I was aware of a draw. I don't know if it was a feeling, but I felt drawn to women, to certain women, I guess, with whatever whatever I was drawn to, whatever characteristics. I kind of see all the decades of my life kind of divided by decades. I was born in early 60s, came of age in the 70s. High school, I graduated high school in early 80s, went to college, grad school, got married, and had 2 kids, all, well, not the 2 kids. I went to high school, college, grad school in the 80s, and then in the 90s had, got married, late 80s, 90s, had 2 kids. Bought a house with my then husband, raised them during the 90s and the 2000s. And now in the 2010s, there were a lot of changes for me. 2010, my dad, he was suffering from Parkinson's, and now we know Alzheimer's as well. He passed away in early 2012. And about 2 years later, it wasn't like it happened all of a sudden, but I came out to myself. Like, I realized I was gay. I realized I am gay. And it didn't happen all at once, like I say. I would have thoughts like, I didn't want to be married anymore. I didn't want to be married to my husband. And there was no reason. Great husband. We raised the kids. We had a great marriage in that sense, kept the house, took care of the house and so on. But little by little, thoughts came into my head, like, for example, if my husband were to predecease me, I would date a woman. I could see myself with a woman. And that was like an awakening thought for me. That happened around 2012, 2013, 2014. Coming out to myself continued to grow. I reached out, I'm looking at my little cheat sheet notes. Yeah, 2014, I found the SWAN group at the LGBT Center. And I joined that group, and it was made up of women over 50. And not many were in the same situation I was in, or really none were. A few of them may have been married, then divorced, with children, either they had children or they didn't have their own children. But I found it supportive to be in that group. Even if the stories were a little different, I found it supportive because I can be gay and people knew it. And I felt safe about it. I was able to be out in that group, even if we weren't talking about LGBT issues. I went out to them, they knew it, and it felt good and natural to me. So things just continued from there. A couple of years later, and I think it was at my sister's house, I think it was a Passover holiday, I said something to my mom that led her to ask me if I'm gay. I think I just kind of dangled it out there. And I told her yes. So that was the first person I came out to. She asked me to tell my sister so that she would have someone to talk to, and that was very comfortable for me. And then about a year later, probably a struggling year, continuing to go to SWAN and keeping up my friendships with this group, and also keeping up my life at home with my husband. And let's see, at that point, I think my daughter was in college, my son was graduating high school. No, I'm sorry. My son is 27. He was out of college by then. He didn't finish college. But anyway, about a year after I told my mother and sister, I told my husband. And it was sad for both of us because I think he was certain, and I agree with him. I agreed with him soon after that it was best for us to get divorced and move on. Growing up, I really wanted to be a mother. I wanted to have children. And fortunately, things worked out that way. And I think I pictured a pretty typical heteronormative life. I don't usually like to use the word normative because it feels like things that aren't that way aren't normal, but a typical heterosexual life, in New York and Long Island and so on. So I did that for 30 years and found myself just very unhappy. Again, like I said, I didn't want to stay married. I didn't know why. I would say things to myself, I need to wait till my kids are out of college, out of the house, or at least starting, into their adult lives a bit. And that's what I did. I waited. And then by the time my younger child went to college, my dad got sick. So that's why, that was the focus then for a while. But I thought I would be, mom, a grandparent eventually. So that worked out that way. And then things just took a different turn for me about 7 years ago.
Okay, my name is Franz Jange, and I was born on July 14, 1939 in Switzerland, to be precise, in Büren an der Aare. And I lived there until I was about 18. And then I moved to Geneva, and in February, Geneva, Switzerland. And in February 1966, I moved to New York City, and I lived in New York for 39 years. And when I retired in 2004, I moved out to Long Island. Actually, 2005, I moved out to Middle Island on Long Island. So that's about the time frame when I was where. Okay, I think I was something like maybe 22 years old. I led a gay life. I had a gay boyfriend, so I was already settled in my being gay. So really, I knew what I was. I knew who I was. Nothing really changed after that. It was much more confusing earlier, before I accepted the fact that I was gay. There was a lot of pressure. Let's say I was 22. There was a lot of pressure to find a girlfriend, to go steady, to get married. So that was a big distraction because you were hiding. So like at work, well, who is your girlfriend? Well, I don't have one yet. So I think partly I was still in denial. I mean, or I didn't know how to deal with these situations. It was very awkward and very stressful, actually, this hiding and pretending to be somebody not gay. That's the situation. That was the situation at work. Now, privately, I had a gay boyfriend, and we spent a lot of time together, and I knew his family, but vis-a-vis the family, we were hiding too. We were not open. Well, it shows a mandala, and that's something I bought when I was in Tibet. My mother was very homophobic. She made sometimes very homophobic comments. My father was very different. I think my father was terrified that I might turn out gay. And that's also a very confusing and vague story. Listen, I never thought I would be alive. No, I never thought about it. Do you think about being old? I don't think so. I remember, Social Security was introduced in Switzerland in 1948. And my father, so I was 9 years old. And my father said to me, oh, in 2004, you'll get Social Security. And I was laughing like crazy. I said, 2004? I mean, this was 1900 something. That'll never happen. So honestly, I never thought what my life would be like now. I just never really thought about it. Well, it's easy to give advice now. Be more open, be freer. accept yourself and don't care so much about what other people think or about how judgmental other people are about what you are. Don't feel so much like an outcast and a leper, because I really felt very wrong when I was young. It was wrong to be gay. That was a big stressful burden. I cannot say it any other way. So I would say, if I could do it over, I would be open about what I am, but maybe it would have been a problem too. So maybe whatever I did was fine, that I took the right path. I cannot judge that at this point.
Okay, so that first photo is a photo for my college yearbook. So I was just about to graduate it. I graduated college in 1976, Oswego State with a teaching degree. So for me, it was an exciting time in college. I made, we started a small group, like a Gay Activist Alliance. So I had a small group of friends, gay friends. I never really had that many friends. I was very introverted. So, taking the teaching degree and student teaching, got me more out of my shell. So basically, the only gay friends I had were up in college. Like, I came out to my sister when I was like 16. My father had a very violent reaction to it, and I more or less retracted everything. So it wasn't like I was going to come out again to my family, because at that young age of like just turning 16, or if I was even 16, finding out this is who you are and there's a name for it and you're happy, and then a parent you know rejects you. It's like, I didn't want to go through all that, so I didn't really come out to my family, but I was out to myself. Like, we would go into the student union and we put up the signs for the GAA, and we would advertise in the school paper, and to come meet both the students and the community of Oswego. Whoever wanted to come on campus, and that actually started like in, say, maybe like 73 or 74. And it was in the student union building. A lot of people were very paranoid to meet, because if they went into this room at the union, they would know you were gay, and it definitely wasn't accepted at that time. Like I said, I knew like at 15 that there was a term for what I was, like, okay, you know, you would, as a younger, you'd be called names, but you didn't really realize that, this is what you actually are. I always, when I was younger, I hung out with my sister, who's like 14 months younger than me, and her friend, and the three of us would all be hanging out. And this is back, in the 60s. And like, I had the longer hair, the hip hugger bell bottoms, and, you know, guys, like, so my sister was very, very pretty, and the other girl was, nice too. And, they'd be saying, like, they'd be whistling at us, and then go, oh, you're a boy, you're a faggot, and stuff like that, because of my clothes and stuff, or you're queer or whatever. But that was like, okay, just, because of my clothes I'm wearing, they're calling me these names. But then when actually, you get involved in a relationship, and whoever you're with saying, oh, you really are a homo, or you really are gay, or you really are queer, but yet, you're hanging out together. It's like, okay, this is what I am. Okay, there's a whole, and that was like 1969. So of course, Stonewall was in the paper a lot, and gay people. So all of a sudden I knew there wasn't just like me. It's talked about, ignorant, lots of times ignorance or being unaware of something, you're afraid of it. I think the more things are talked about and people realize who we are or where we are, makes it less of a fear and less fear. I think there's less prejudice or less hatred.
Alrighty. So while we wait for him, I just wanted to, oh, perfect. There you are, Georgie. All right, so now we can say a round of applause to our panelists and participants for tonight. So again, thank you so much for being here. So I will open up the floor to take questions from the audience. But before that, I just wanted to pose a question to you as a group. What was this experience like? What did it feel like sharing your stories in this way, and why did you choose to participate? And whoever wants to go first, feel free to jump on.
Well, I'll speak because I'm never silent. I thought it was kind of fun, actually. I was a little bit nervous while doing it, but I did enjoy the experience. Gave me a good feeling of confidence, and I had to kind of be a little bit introspective to kind of think back on the past.
Yeah, I think I got involved because I took a lot of social science classes in college, and I'm into history, and this way we live the history, and it's good to have a recording of it, and it makes you feel like you're writing history or something like that.
I'll go next. I really enjoyed participating in this program. When I first came out about 5 or 6 years ago in my early 50s, I was drawn to other people's coming out stories, books, podcasts, movies, anything I could get a hold of. So I'm hoping that this may help other people, and I hope to be able to share more in the future.
I have realized, even watching this and when I was saying it, that life is full of decisions. And some of the decisions we actively make, and some things maybe just happen to us. And in retrospect, you wonder if you really wanted to make these decisions, or life just kind of happens to you. And it's something that I ponder now. And I think that it's just something to think about. Because I obviously made some decisions, or let's say my life has gone a certain way, and I don't know if it just went that way, or it just happened to me.
I would say the coming out experience never ends. We always have to keep working on that, and sharing this story helps me to come out further. That's basically my experience, and why I think it's valuable to share in an experience like that.
Thank you so much for answering that question. And now, if there's anyone in the crowd who has any questions, Corinne? I think I'll be relaying.
Well, I have a question for Franz. What a nice surprise to see a compatriot. I'm from Switzerland. I'm a curator here.
We have someone from Switzerland in the audience tonight.
I'm the curator here. And I'm just curious if your decision... Anyway, I'm curious to know if your decision to move to the US had anything to do with you being gay and thinking that maybe, you know, the society is more open in America, because I think Switzerland, especially back then, was an incredibly conservative place.
It has a lot to do with that. In fact, it was the main reason. You know, I had heard from friends who had visited New York, and they came back with these stories of being liberated. And so I figured this would be a refuge for me. And I lived in the village, in Greenwich Village, the first 7 years, I think. And it was a very, very liberating experience. It changed my life entirely.
Where are you from again? I think we're from nearby. I think it's a rural area, right?
Yes, it was it's a small country town of 3,000 inhabitants in Switzerland.
Thank you.
And of course, we were, you know, there were no gay people. I mean, that's what I thought, because everybody was hiding.
I know that because I was madly in love as a teenager with my brother's best friend, and for a very long time, I never understood why he wasn't interested in me, and then I found out he was in love with my brother. We're still best friends.
I see another hand raised, right?
Yes, I'm the same age as Georgie, and growing up, knowing that I was gay and hearing these derogatory terms like queer and faggot, I'm just wondering, what do you guys think about now with they have labels at LGBTQ plus? Q growing up was very derogatory, and why do you think the young people want to be called queer?
Well, I just remember, you know, during the AIDS period, our group took ownership of queer, and you know, that was very enlightening to me, realizing that, you know, it's not really the word, it's the, you know, the attitude behind it. The word itself isn't always derogatory if you use it in a, you know, in a powerful way. So I can understand why some young people want to just say, like, you know, I'm queer, because they're taking ownership of it. You know, they're not normal. You know, who wants to be normal? So yeah, they take queer.
I didn't.
You know, Georgie, not to intersect and take away the attention from your other questions, but whenever I hear the word normal, my brain translates it to the word average, right? We pretty much measure and determine both by the same metric. Anyone else?
Paul?
Hi guys, it's Paul.
Hey, Paul.
I just wonder whether you guys could talk about, you touched on a little bit about your families, you know, like how your relationship was with your families and their attitudes towards when you came out as opposed to before you came out. Did you find that your relationships with your families was closer, tighter, or was there a problem with some of them, or you talked about it a little bit? Detroit.
Well, if I could, I would like to speak to that. In most situations, situations you hear about children coming out to their parents. In my situation, my kids were out in their 20s and I came out to them. So it was quite a reverse situation. I remember my son's reaction was that, well, I didn't know you were gay, but I'm certainly not surprised. And my daughter, who was at the time 25, said, Dad, tell me something I don't know. I've known for years. So I just, I mean, I was very lucky. After spending 58 years in the closet, I said, I'm not spending one more day there. And I just pretty much came out, and I found that the coming out process at this point in my life was quite easy. The difficult part was at 15, getting involved in the gay society, in the gay community. My family was no problem at all, especially since most of them had figured it out anyway.
What,
My experience,
go ahead, Franz.
my experience was that I really didn't come out to anybody in my family until fairly late in life, like retirement age. And that's when I started going back to Switzerland. I mean, here in the United States, I was open with most people. When I went back to Switzerland, I was still in the closet. And then when I retired, I went back very frequently. I spent about 4 months per year there. So I figured, well, it was time to come out to people. And everybody, because I was never married and I had several male relationships, everybody's reaction was, well, that's what we actually thought anyway. So it was no surprise.
Okay, I'll go. I came out to my folks when I was 21. And it took them a little while, but they did come around within a few months. They were able to accept it. My father didn't want to talk about it at first. But within about 2 years, my parents joined PFLAG, which is a group called Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. And my father, being the salesman that he was born to be very outspoken in the group, and suddenly was helping others. So I think they accepted it fairly well. The rest of my family, be it my brother and my extended family, learned over the years, over a period of about 10 years, almost everyone knew. And when I attended my brother's wedding as his best man, with John at my side, I think at that point, my family knew.
Steve, George, if you want to also answer the question, feel free. No,
So like I said, when I was 15 or 16, I told my sister, who then told my father, and his reaction to it was very violent. I probably had like a slight emotional breakdown. And I realized this was what I was, but if he would rather have me in prison or whatever, he begged me to say it wasn't true. I told him it wasn't true. And after that, I wasn't going to go through that again. So I never told him. So, like since the late 80s, I've lived with my parents. I took care of my parents. I mean, they saw me every day. I'm quite sure they knew I was gay. I didn't have any relationships. And my siblings, I would think they would know, they knew. We never really talked about it. And I didn't really talk about it until after probably my father died. But I'm quite sure they knew, even like my niece said, when I first was like more open about it, she goes, well, Uncle Georgie, I've always figured you were gay because you love purple and unicorns. So, people, it's like I guess if I found a partner, I would have been more, confrontational with them, to them with it. But, and my siblings and I are very, very close. Um, and they helped me a lot. So I'm quite sure it didn't matter if I was gay or not, or straight or whatever, or queer. But they still love me. They haven't disowned me. So
So Eve, I think you're the only one we haven't heard from in terms of this question. Oh, I think you're muted.
So in terms of coming out, I came out to my mom first and knew that it wouldn't change how she felt about me. My father had passed already. So she knew before anyone else in my family did. And I had no question that I would be ostracized, that my family would continue to love me and support me. The big thing for us was that I was married, 2 kids in their early 20s or so, and it would be a big change for everyone. So that was the biggest struggle for us.
Thank you, everyone. Back to the audience.
I have another question.
All right, we got it.
For Eve, have you found someone special in your life?
I have. Thank you for asking. About, let's see, it was before COVID, just over 2 years ago. I met someone and we are still together. And it's a very nice relationship. My kids are great, and they're great either way. But we kind of have a new family setup. My ex-husband is engaged to a woman, and they plan to be married this coming spring. And we all coordinate family get-togethers, holidays. Actually, our daughter just got married last month, and it was lovely with all that who attended. So I feel like we're moving on. He with a woman, my ex with his fiance, a woman. And I never had question that my kids or my family would have an issue with me being gay. Biggest issue for us was the breakup of my previous family.
I actually had a question, something I was really curious about while watching this documentary, because I won't tell people how many times I've seen these interviews. But one thing that, kind of stood out, in a few of them is this idea of doing what you were supposed to do. So I want to ask those of you who shared, feelings along those lines, who told you what you were supposed to do, and what did they say?
Society told me what to do. Society, when you turn 23, you had to have a girlfriend, a steady girlfriend, and then you had to get engaged and married. So it was the whole environment that gave me the message. And I didn't live up to it. So I felt like a total outcast. And that's why I fled to New York City. Now in New York City, really nobody bothered me because I had no family here. And I felt so liberated.
Go ahead, Eve.
So I was never told that it wasn't the right or the wrong thing to do. I do remember from a very young age wanting to be a mother. And like I said in the clip, I was fortunate enough to have that opportunity. My daughter's 30, my son is 28, and that was my focus. And like what Franz had said, it was society that didn't help me or let me feel welcome to be out. And I wasn't out to myself. It wasn't on my radar. It was a community that I was sensitive to and I supported, but not one that I felt I was a part of primarily. So now I'm able to be supportive of it and out as well.
I think I would agree that society what really had a big impact on us. Think through the 50s and 60s, you know, we grew up in the Ozzie and Harriet days, you know, everything was assumed to be straight. And by the time the 1970s came along and I was a teenager going to college, I saw all of these straight people. And I certainly realized at a certain point that it wasn't me. And I just had to do something about it. It was very difficult. My friends who I told almost universally were quite surprised. But I had to do what was right for me.
I think people in my age group, nobody wanted to be gay. I mean, this was the furthest from our goals, you know.
I am an active member of the Long Island Gay Fathers Association. And there are about 20, 30 members of it. Now we should call it the Long Island Gay Grandfathers Association. But at that time, when I got married in the 70s, this is just what you did. And like Franz said right from the beginning, it is just societally ingrained in you. I have heard many people say that there must be some handbook for life, which they didn't get because they didn't know what they were supposed to do, what was expected of them. Well, as a Long Island Jewish boy with a father for a doctor, I knew exactly what was expected of me. I knew in capitals and in small letters and in paragraphs, and there was no doubt in my mind what was expected of me. And as I said, I did it. I did it. The only thing that I said is, I have this handbook, but it must be written to somebody else because it just doesn't apply to me.
I'll just say that, you know, it's definitely society, but even like going to college and you take sociology or anthropology, it was always the nuclear family, man, woman. So at an early age, you know, those ages, I knew I had to adapt in a different way. You know, I love children. I wanted children. I didn't think I would ever be able to, I would never been able to have a child with a woman. I knew that. And I didn't think I could ever adopt because I was gay. So that's why I went into teaching. And, you know, religion too. My mother was very Catholic, though I think she would have been more accepting of my lifestyle. But, you know, the church is telling you this, the society's telling you this. You're getting an education back, you know, back in the 70s, you know, it definitely, it was like everything was telling you, you know, this wasn't acceptable, or you would have to adapt. Or
Yeah, I mentioned during the interview that my mother was very homophobic, and you internalize that hatred of faggots. And of course, you don't want to be what your mother hates. So it was really very difficult for me. I never discussed it with my parents.
So as a follow up to that idea, you know, in terms of society telling us what we're supposed to do, in what ways do you think it's still the same today, and in what ways do you think it's different?
Well, I'm very jealous of my nephew, who is gay, you know, because in this day and age, if he chooses to get married, he could get married. You know, he could have children either through adoption or surrogate. Um, so I'm very envious. You know, for that. Um, you know, working at Walmart the last part of my career, you know, it seems like corporations are definitely more accepting. You know, they're not going to reject you because of your sexual orientation. You know, they involved in a lot of activities. Um, so I'm quite sure there's still negativity about it, but I definitely think it's kind of like makes me happy to see the progress that the you know our the gay families have been able to accomplish. Um, but I would like to talk to Connor and see if there's still, you know, like attitudes and negativity. You know, and also we're in New York. I'm quite sure the South or the Midwest, it's a different story, maybe.
I think the focus has really switched from homosexuality to transgender and to bisexuality and pansexuality. And today, being homosexual is almost chic. And certainly, my family has no trouble with it. Both of my children were married after I came out, and there was certainly no problem with any in-laws or grandchildren or anything like that. No one seemed to have a problem. It's very different now. But again, I hope that eventually the transgender community and all of these other communities that are coming around will have the advantage that we have, that we fought for it. But I think maybe I think society is a little more accepting now. Even if it's not more understanding, I think it's more accepting.
One thing that the young folks don't have to worry about as much as we did is that there was a whole legal issue. You know, was the bar going to be raided? Was the cruising area, was there someone that was an unmarked police car watching her? Things are a little bit more accepted today.
Well, I would like to add something. About 10 years ago, at the LGBT meeting, another old man and myself were interviewed by 3 young people. And we lived in such different worlds. You know, they were complaining, I mean, they were gay, they were complaining about being bullied in school. And they asked us how was it when we went to school. Well, we were not bullied because we were hiding. So they have a totally different experience, but since they get bullied, obviously it's still not totally fully accepted.
You know, there is a debate in the gay community because the The gays fought for integration for so long. But now that we have gotten our integration, we have given up our uniqueness, so to speak, so that there are much fewer gay bars because you don't need gay bars anymore. Fire Island used to be like a gay haven, but now there are many straight people in Fire Island. And Province Sound and Key West, all of these places that were gay havens no longer exist. And some people say, well, that's what comes with integration. And some people said it, well, I liked it better when we were unique and we had our own places we could go to be ourselves.
Michael, something that you said sparked something. When I was bullied, when I was in high school or in junior high school, there was nowhere to go. I couldn't go to a teacher. I couldn't go to a principal. I couldn't go to my parents. I just had to deal with it and watch as one time I get into a fight on the front steps of my house. I let my mother screaming until the bully went away. Now, sure, I was in the closet, but some people figured it out. On a lighter note, I can recall in those years marching against the Vietnam War. If that can be light, I can remember someone yelling out at me, "You pinko commie fag." And it's like, well, I'm not going to tell you which ones are right.
I want to just turn the mic back to the audience if any other questions have come up. No pressure. Oh,
Just in terms of describing the kind of progress that's occurred, I'm also interested in the actual experience of watching the five of you be so public about a situation that I think I would still find very difficult. And it's very admirable to be able to get to the point in your life where you can actually do this. And I'm just wondering whether any of you have any comment about this, the public nature of this film experience.
If I got the question correctly, you want to know what it was like for us to hear our story in a very public area. I think it's a very big step. I mean, I've been out for a long, long time, but I never have been this out. And yeah, there's a little bit of nerves here, I'll admit. But it's just another step in my coming out. And this coming out is a very long process. In my case, I may have started it when I was 15 or 16. Did something really when I was 21. And it's been step by step ever since.
I was actually wondering while I sat here, would I want everybody to see that? I'm not sure.
I think at this stage in my life, it doesn't to me, it doesn't really matter. It was a very easy course. My parents are gone. I think those are the only ones I would think I would, at the beginning, maybe let down and they would get upset about it. My siblings, I mean, I'm me and they love me, and I don't think it matters what I do. And I know my nieces and nephews, you know, they're the new generation and their attitude is really cool. The first like 25 years of my career, I might not have wanted to be out. But the last decade of my career at Walmart, I was out, and it was very freeing to be out, where you could kid around with your coworker about who's the new hot guy we just hired or something, you know. So it was liberating. But this, I just think this was easy. Yeah. You know, a lot of you are strangers, so it's like, you know, I'm not going to hear your real attitudes or anything, but being having it out there, I think is a good thing. And it's especially as a senior, you know, the younger generation could see seniors when you're like my when you're 23, 25, are you thinking about being 60, 70 years old? Well, maybe you should, you know. What are you going to do with your life? Should you find a partner? Will you have kids?
You know, I'm still hung up on the old times. For instance, European countries are very progressive in gay issues, and so is Switzerland. But I have contact with the Swiss community here, and I still feel self-conscious and don't talk to them. So this is a hang up from the old days. I can't get over it.
You know, I talk very openly in front of my family about being gay. And it's not as if I get any kickback, but let's say I am not met with enthusiasm. I get the feeling that my children do not understand the concept of gay pride, that I may actually be proud of who I am. And I won't make excuses for it. Believe me, as a parent, you learn your boundaries very quickly. I don't talk about anything that would be in any way offensive or anything like that. But I was in Newsday earlier this year, also with a project connected with the network. And my picture was in Newsday as a gay man. And I don't think my kids were thrilled about it. I was happy about it. But, you know, I think it's one thing for yourself and it's another thing for your family. And especially if you have children, they may not feel exactly like you do. But I am a firm believer in gay pride. And as I said, I have very close and warm relations with my children, but I am very careful what I say and what I bring up, and I am very aware of boundaries.
I'd just like to say thank you to all you participants in the documentary. I can relate to every one of you, mostly Michael. And I was married, came out at 57, 5 years ago. And something I might add is kind of what Michael was saying about the family not wanting to hear too much about it. My daughter, the school teacher, accepted me 100%, and her words were, "Dad, I'm so sorry I had to be buried that for so long." And that was the sweetest thing she could have said. And the surprising thing was my new lesbian niece at her own wedding rejected me, which was the family. I came back to friends and younger friends and was accepted 100%. But now it's on public on Facebook. But it was the hardest thing was to come out to your own family. And I never let a double life or cheat. We had a death in the family, so my wife and I always separated. So then when I was forced to face my life and then decide what I should be, but the biggest disappointment was the first person within the family that I thought would be safe to come out to was my niece, and that turned out to be the biggest mistake. And surprisingly, and that was 4 years ago, I still didn't get over that. But I think somebody said to me, and it kind of made sense to me, was it wasn't that you're gay, because my family was very accepting, and I was of my niece when she came out, in front of my children and everything. I never had an issue. And I think it was they see you, I'm Uncle Patrick, and I had a role that they looked up to all their life. And now I'm a different person to them. certain family members, not my immediate family, not my wife or my daughter. But they saw me as somebody, and now I'm somebody different, and I wasn't who they needed me to be. And that's the only thing I could think of where my niece was coming from. But it was very strange and a very different story than I've ever heard of any coming out story. But thank you very much for everything that you said. There's so much you can relate to about growing up in the 60s and the 70s. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have anyone to talk to. For me, it was religious values, not wanting to disappoint your family, your parents. I was bullied in school, but like John said, you know, I didn't go home and tell my parents or tell anybody about it or talk about it. Eve, I could relate to a lot of what she said. So it's just, and I believe it is, you get to a point where when someone asks how can you be public about it, it comes to a point where you have to be public about it. And you don't want it to happen to anybody else. And I'm just so happy that the world is a different place. Thank you.
Welcome back, Eve.
I'm so sorry, there was a fire alarm in the building I'm in.
Well, we're glad you're safe.
Thank you.
For a minute there, I was like, oh no, are we going to witness a live, you know?
Oh, no.
So we've been having a really engaging conversation since. I do want to turn the mic back to the audience in case anyone else. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. For the group, Michael, what you said about being unique, that the way that society is and the way that it's becoming is that you're no longer unique. You know, there's special bars, you know, that there's specific bars or places to go that now everybody is going to. I myself am transgender. You know, and the thing is, when you walk down the street, you look just like everybody else. When I walk down the street, I'm unique because I look different. I have been living 24/7 for the past 4 years now. You know, so I don't care if I look unique. But what would you say to all the panelists? What advice would you give to somebody, even a younger person or so, that is just realizing or coming to the epiphany that they are part of the LGBT community, and they feel that they are unique and have fears about that?
I would say follow your heart. And I think as a transgender person, I think you will have it tougher than we had as gay people. But I think if it's truly who you are, then people will learn to understand, people learn to accept. And I would, more than anything, having lived so many years not being myself, and then finally at almost 60, coming to terms with who I am, it was one of the most uplifting and liberating things that I have ever done. Probably the most uplifting. And I would just say, follow your heart and be true to yourself.
I would agree with Michael. And just to add to it, over my really 50 years of thinking of this, I could use a phrase that's been used many times by others, and that is that it gets better. I mean, you have to work slowly and take your time, do things in moderation, don't jump off the cliff, but step by step by step, you'll find your way. You just have to have patience with yourself and keep your mind open and experience new things.
Yeah, I think on Long Island, like if I thought I was trans or, you know, just coming out as gay and was lost, I'm so glad there's the LGBT network, which is definitely involved in a lot of high schools. You know, if they only had something like that back in our day, to know that you're not the only one, to like say like, well, I have these feelings. What are they exactly? Well, there's a couple other kids there where you can compare notes. I think it would be a lifesaver because lots of times you think you're the only one, or there's something wrong, or you just isolate yourself and you're kind of like stagnant. Whereas like now with the organization like LGBT, it, I think it would be a lifesaver, and that's what I would tell them to do. Find a group, and or find some family. Like I don't know if you saw Pose, but you know how people get together and adopt and become a family. But if you're still in school, I'm not sure when LGBT the organization starts, but I know that even in elementary school, they're recognizing, the variety of sexualities that are out there.
I think the kids
I'd like
today are actually kind of lucky in the sense that they do have these options and these resources. When I look back on when we were kids, there was really nowhere to go. I still recall going to the school psychologist and I was having all sorts of panic attacks and I didn't know why I was having these. But I couldn't really tell him why. I figured, boy, if I really told him why I was having problems, first thing he'd do is tell my parents. That's the last thing a 16-year-old wants. But now, as I'm looking back on it now, and when I hit my 20s and still living on Long Island, I started running into people from high school. It's like, oh my, you were gay? I didn't know that. I found out that half a dozen of my friends from high school also came out in their 20s. Now, what was it that kind of kept us in a circle of friends back then? I can't answer. But maybe we kind of perceived something. But today, kids can actually talk about it a little bit. We didn't have that option. At least I didn't see that possibility.
I'd like to add to the suggestions that were already made by sharing what worked for me, which was I reached out to my local LGBT center as well as my local Peace Side chapter. And they're still both a part of my life. My life.
Because when in my youth, you never discussed these issues. So you internalize that outcast status. And there was a side you almost became a little proud of it. I'm different, I'm an outsider. And actually, with all the progress we made, I had a sense of loss at one point, that I'm really not that different anymore.
Sorry.
Yes, I have another question to Michael and Eve. While you were married, did you have an outlet with gay people to talk to, or did you avoid gay people because they been shining light on you of being gay?
When I was married, I was 100% closeted. So I had no more to do with gay people than anybody else. Probably less because there was a fear that I might be found out. So when I came out, I had no gay friends, no gay acquaintances, no gay connections in any way or form. I also would like to say I was faithful in my marriage, as let's say as faithful as I could possibly be. I certainly wasn't having affairs with women, I can tell you that. But no, I took my marriage vows very, very seriously, and I had no connection with the gay community, which now, as a gay man, bothers me because I just looked at the AIDS crisis as any straight person did, and I feel bad that I wasn't somehow more involved in it. But as I said, you make choices in life, and you have to live with them.
when I came out after college, I had had a new job, and within the first couple of years, I realized that one of my coworkers, who was an older man than me, much older, old enough to be my own father, was gay. And we used to be in a carpool together, and we talked a lot about it. And I learned a lot about what it would be to be someone who was born, say, in 1920, lived a closeted life, got married, had children, but had no outlet. And I found out that, yeah, he did have a few outlets, you know, for cruising areas, but otherwise, his outlet was talking to me. So in our hours commute every day, we talked a great deal. And I learned from that and tried to continue as I went on to learn a lot from an older generation. And I wound up having quite a few friends that were 25, 35 years older than me. And I learned from their experiences and shared, and they shared with me. And I hope that this video and this discussion can kind of lead that same type of step toward another generation. And that's the real reason why I wanted to participate in this video.
I'm a very bad moderator because I should have let Eve go right after Michael.
No, I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. All good. It's all great. I didn't struggle with being closeted because I didn't realize I was gay. It wasn't on my radar. If I had inklings about it, and I think about that from time to time, it was so pushed down that it wasn't my consciousness. I kind of forgot the original question, but I did want to share that I didn't struggle because I wasn't out until about 5 years ago, until about my early 50s.
I would like to add that my ex-wife is probably my best friend. If we were married still, we would be married for 47 years. And she is still like my person. I am her person. When she needs a ride to go to the doctor, I'm the one she calls. And the same for me. We share grandchildren, which of course is a bonding thing. But who else do I know in my life for 47 years that I have been this intimate? All of our history isn't great, but it is history and it is very bonding. I think it's probably healthy for our children. And right from the very beginning of our divorce, it was very amicable. And I think it has worked for everybody. I think we're kind of like, whether we like it or not, we're kind of being life partners. But we are definitely there for each other. And it's very comforting being a single man, knowing that there is someone you can call and say, I'm having a colonoscopy on Monday, I need a ride.
Oh, you poor guy.
Actually, she's having a colonoscopy on Monday and I'm driving her.
Oh, gosh.
So as we near our closing time, I just want to make sure everyone was able to get your questions out there. Going once. So, in the closing of the documentary, Georgie concludes with lots of times ignorance or being unaware of something. You're afraid of it. I think the more things are talked about, people realize who we are and where we are, makes it less of a fear. Less fear, and then there's less prejudice or less hatred. And that truly is what this documentary is about. Raising the visibility of LGBT older adults, our neighbors, and hearing their stories and journeys. So one final question that is open to all panelists, but I want to start first with Georgie. How do you think talking about things reduces fear, prejudice, and hatred?
think lots of times if you don't have a personal experience with a person or a religion or a culture, it seems foreign to you. It's strange. Um, and I think out of that ignorance is how like prejudice forms, or you're more liable to believe, this hate speech or whatever. But once you have a personal connection, um, and you learn about it, and I think you become more, you have more empathy for the other person. Um, I really don't believe, I don't want to believe, that a lot of this prejudice and hatred is just there. I think it's out of ignorance and fear. Ignorance leads to fear, and that's what that is. Once we're out there, people get to know us. We get to know each other. We'll realize, there is always going to be a group of negative or bad people, no matter what. But as a group, um, we're just human, like everyone else.
Add on to Georgie, people fear what they don't understand. And so many folks in society don't realize that, we are your sisters and brothers, your uncles and aunts, your mothers and fathers. And if we can all just be a little bit more open and comfortable with ourselves, I think society in time will learn to be more accepting of us. I hope that's not too much pie in the sky, but I like to think that. Adrian, Adrian, my husband, John.
Welcome, John, everyone.
If I may say something very briefly. When I was in my teens and 20s, I was very fortunate to have gay mentors, people who led lives that were very different from the 5 people of our generation that you're seeing today. But the 5 people of our generation that you're seeing today are the ones who started the modern gay movement. One thing that motivated me was that the people who were born in the 19th century and were great human beings. I can't go into the horror stories of what they endured, and it affected me very deeply and got me involved in the 1970s in what today is called the early gay movement. And I hope now that all of us before you are 3 days younger than water, we can inspire those of you who are younger to take this up, because truth be told, we have a long way to go yet. That's okay.
Eve?
So I'd like to share
Thank you, Adrian.
that for me, hearing from others about any type of experience normalizes it for those in the community, whatever community it is, and eventually for those outside of it. That's been my experience.
I am a firm believer in organization. I believe that until Stonewall and gay liberation, the gays had to fight for their rights. I think women are fighting for their rights. I think minorities are fighting for their rights. And I think if you remain too silent and there is no discussion, then things will just remain the same. I think discussion is necessary. I think organization is necessary. I think all of these things are necessary, or else there will be no progress.
You know, there was also a time when our fear was maybe exaggerated. The fear of being found out. Because in 1978, I was outed at work, and that was management. And I felt like dying. I felt like I could not go back to that place. And luckily, I saw a therapist, and he told me, no, you have to go to work and face it. And if you don't want to talk about it, you just tell people, I don't want to discuss it. And I went back and I did that. Several people approached me. I said, I don't want to discuss it. And it blew over and nothing happened. Everybody treated me the same way as before. And it was almost a liberating experience.
Well, just by joining us tonight and not only participating in the documentary, but also this Q&A session, I really hope you don't take for granted the contribution that you've made to dismantling the fear, the prejudice, and the misunderstandings. So really, I hope you're all very proud of yourselves, because I've learned a lot from you. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
We would like to say thank you to Adrian for really putting this together. It means a great deal to
Yes.
us.
This was a huge.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.